If you're listening to this, chances are you're over 60, maybe 70 like me, and you know how some memories never get cold, no matter how many winters pass. My name is Mary Margaret Kelly Olson now, but back in 1963 I was just 6 years old and everybody called me Mary-Margie. I had curly red pigtails that stuck out from under my hat like two little fox tails, freckles across my nose that Mama used to kiss one by one, and a big brother named Tommy who was 8 going on 80. People always ask me why I still cry at Christmas. I tell them it's not because of what my daddy did to us that night. I cry because of what one tiny, half-blind, 97-pound nun did instead, and because 3 weeks ago, on the first Sunday of Advent 2025, Sister Agnes Marie went home to Jesus at 97 years old, and I never got to hold her hand one last time and say thank you properly. So tonight, Christmas Eve again, 62 years later, I'm going to tell you the whole story, from the very first snowflake that fell that December to the day they lowered her simple pine box into the frozen Minnesota ground last week. Every detail, every tear, every miracle, every funny little thing she did that only the children she raised would remember. If you've got a cup of cocoa and a box of tissues, pull up a chair beside the fire with me. This is going to take a while, but I promise you'll feel warmer by the end. It all began in Duluth, Minnesota, 1963. Mama had died the previous January, cervical cancer that came fast and mean. One week she was making her famous cinnamon rolls that filled the whole house with sugar and love. The next week she was in St. Luke's Hospital whispering, "Be good for your daddy, Mary-Margie. And tell Tommy to stop growing so fast." She was only 33. I still have the little silver thimble she kept on her nightstand. I keep it in my jewelry box and touch it whenever I need her close. After the funeral, Daddy was never the same. He'd sit in the dark living room in his long johns, staring at Mama's empty rocking chair, a bottle of old Granddad in his hand. Some nights he'd cry so hard the walls seemed to shake. Other nights he'd get angry at the air and throw things. Tommy learned to grab me and hide in the closet when the shouting started. But Christmas was coming, and Tommy and I were determined to make it feel like Mama was still with us somehow. We dragged a little balsam pine home from the empty lot behind Garfield Elementary. It was crooked and missing half its needles, but we decorated it with the paper chains we made in school and Mama's precious glass ornaments, the ones with the tiny painted churches inside that caught the light like magic. I used every nickel I'd saved from returning pop bottles to buy Daddy a present, a little porcelain angel for the top of the tree. It had golden wings and a pink dress, and I wrapped it in the Sunday funnies and tied it with the red yarn I pulled from my old mitten. I couldn't wait for him to open it and smile again. Christmas Eve day, the snow started before we even had breakfast. Big, fat flakes that stuck to the windows and turned the whole world white and quiet. By supper time it was already over our knees. Daddy came home from near docks early, face raw from the wind, eyes red from something else. He stood in the doorway, snow dripping off his mackinaw, and stared at our little tree like it had insulted him somehow. Then he said the words that changed everything. "Get your coats, children. We're going to Midnight, Massachusetts." Tommy and I looked at each other with saucer eyes. Daddy hadn't stepped foot inside St. Mary's since they rolled Mama's casket down that center aisle 11 months earlier. But we didn't ask questions. When Daddy used that flat, dead voice, you just moved. I put on my red wool coat with the toggle buttons Mama had sewn on herself the winter before, my white muff that was already too small for my hands, and the green knit hat with the pom-pom that Grandma Kelly had sent from Milwaukee. Tommy wore his Sunday coat, the one with the holes in the soles patched with cardboard because new shoes were for rich kids. We walked the 9 blocks to St. Mary's through the worst blizzard Duluth had seen in 20 years. The wind off Lake Superior howled like a freight train that never quite arrived. Snow stung our faces like tiny needles. I held Tommy's hand so tight my fingers went numb inside my mittens. Every few steps he'd pick me up and carry me when the drifts got too deep for my legs. When we finally pushed open the big oak doors of the church, the warmth and the candlelight and the smell of pine boughs and incense wrapped around us like Mama's arms used to. The choir was singing "O Come All Ye Faithful" in Latin, and for one shining minute I thought maybe, just maybe, this Christmas would be all right after all. Daddy told us to wait in the vestibule while he went inside to light a candle for Mama. That was normal. Little kids sometimes had to stand if the pews were full on Christmas Eve. Tommy gave me his scarf because my teeth were already chattering. I remember pressing my face into it and it still smelled like the oatmeal soap he used every morning. 10 minutes went by. 20. 30. The choir started Silent Night, first in German, then in English. I kept watching that inside door, waiting for Daddy's tall shape to come back. He never did. When Mass finally ended, the last parishioners trickled out, wishing each other Merry Christmas in hushed voices. Mrs. Lindstrom, the organist, patted my head and said, "Merry Christmas, Mary-Margie," and then even she was gone. The big front doors closed with a heavy thud. Somebody on the outside turned the key in the lock. Tommy tried the inside doors that led to the nave, locked. We were trapped in the little space between the 2 sets of doors, the vestibule, with a howling blizzard on one side and a dark, empty church on the other. That's when I started to understand something was terribly wrong. I beat on the glass with my mittens until the wool was soaked red from my knuckles. I screamed, "Daddy! Daddy!" until my throat was raw and my voice cracked. Tommy picked me up so I could look out the high window. All I saw was white, snow so thick you couldn't see the street lamps 10 feet away. The temperature outside was 30 degrees below zero with the wind chill. Inside the vestibule it wasn't much warmer because the heat had been turned down after Mass. My feet went numb first. Then my legs. Then everything. Tommy took off his own coat and wrapped it around both of us. He kept saying over and over, "It's okay, Mary-Margie." Daddy probably went to get the car warmed up. He'll be back any minute. But I could hear the shake in his voice. 8 years old and already trying to be the man of the house. I don't know how long we stood there. Hours maybe. The church bells had stopped ringing. The only sound was the wind screaming around the building and my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. I remember thinking, this must be what dying feels like. Cold and alone and nobody coming. I started crying the way only little kids can, those big, hopeless sobs that come from the bottom of your toes and shake your whole body. Then, footsteps. Slow, shuffling, deliberate. Coming from inside the dark church. A tiny flashlight beam danced across the empty pews like a lost firefly. The inside door creaked open, and there stood the oldest person I had ever seen in my whole life. Sister Agnes Marie. She was barely taller than Tommy, 90-something pounds soaking wet, with thick Coke bottle glasses that made her pale blue eyes look enormous, and a black veil that had gone gray at the edges from decades of washings. Everyone at St. Mary's said she was half blind, half deaf, and 100% stubborn Norwegian. She shone that little flashlight on us and said in her raspy, lilting accent, "Well now, what have we here? 2 little frozen sparrows on Christmas morning?" I couldn't answer. My teeth were chattering too hard. She didn't ask twice. She simply took off her own heavy black wool cloak, the one that smelled of incense and wintergreen snuff and something that felt like safety itself, and wrapped it around both of us together. It was still warm from her tiny body. Then she marched us down the center aisle like we were the Blessed Sacrament itself, her little black boots clicking on the marble floor. She lit every single candle in the church, all 112 of them. The whole place glowed gold and smelled like beeswax and hope. She turned on the old radiator by the sacristy that still had a little heat left from the evening. She made cocoa on the altar boy's hot plate, real cocoa with real cream and a mountain of marshmallows she kept hidden in a tin marked "Emergency Use Only, Spiritual Crises." She sat us on the velvet kneeler in front of the life-size nativity scene and said, "Now you listen to me, Mary-Margie and Tommy Kelly. The good Lord never abandons his lambs. Sometimes he just sends an old nun to do the fetching." I fell asleep with my head on Tommy's shoulder and Sister Agnes's gnarled little hand stroking my hair exactly the way Mama used to, humming away in a manger so softly I felt it more than heard it. 1972, the year Sister Agnes turned 85, and the sisters threw her a surprise party. They baked a 3-tier cake and invited the entire parish. She pretended to be shocked, but we found the thank you notes she'd already written hidden in her missal. That night she danced a little Norwegian waltz with Father O'Brien and laughed so hard her veil slipped sideways. 1973, my confirmation. I chose Agnes as my confirmation name because, well, there was never any other choice. Bishop Schlodweiler himself laid hands on me while 28 nuns sniffled into their handkerchiefs. Sister Agnes gave me her own prayer book, the one with the cracked leather cover and pages soft as cloth from decades of use. 1974, Tommy came home from Vietnam with a limp and nightmares that made him scream in his sleep. Sister Agnes moved his bed into her own room for 6 months and sat up with him every night, rosary in one hand, his hand in the other, until the screaming stopped. 1975, I started high school at St. Scholastica Academy. The sisters drove me every morning in the old convent station wagon that backfired like gunfire. Sister Agnes waited at the curb every afternoon with the same butterscotch candies, even though I was 15 and pretended to be too grown up for them. I still took them. 1976, the bicentennial summer. The convent garden produced so many tomatoes we canned 300 quarts. Sister Agnes declared it a miracle of American freedom and made us sing America the Beautiful while we worked. 1977, I met Robert Olson at a church picnic. He was 22, fresh out of the Navy, with kind eyes and a shy smile. Sister Agnes took one look at him and said, "That one's a keeper, Mary-Margie. Don't let the other sisters scare him off." They tried anyway. 1978, my wedding day. June 17. The entire convent turned out in their Sunday best habits. 28 nuns filled the first 4 pews and cried louder than my own cousins. Sister Agnes walked me down the aisle because, as she said, "I've been your mother longer than anyone else." She pinned the same miraculous medal from my first communion into my veil and whispered, "Now you go make your own little sparrows." Our first child, Margaret Agnes Olson, was born in 1979. The sisters fought over who got to hold her first. Sister Agnes won by pulling rank. She was 92 and still spry enough to elbow Sister Bernadette out of the way. The 1980s brought more babies, 3 boys after Maggie, and more gray hairs to the convent. Sisters started going home to God one by one. Every funeral was held in the chapel where we had once slept under leaking roofs. Every time the bell tolled, I felt another piece of my childhood slip away. 1990, Tommy married a lovely girl named Sarah. Sister Agnes, now 103 and confined to a wheelchair, insisted on being pushed down the aisle to give the bride away. She told Sarah, "You take good care of my boy, or you'll answer to me and the Blessed Mother both." The 1990s and 2000s blurred by in a happy haze of grandchildren, school plays, and convent visits. Sister Agnes never lost her marbles. At 105 she could still beat me at cribbage and quote scripture faster than any preacher on television. 2010, the convent closed its doors. The last few sisters moved to the nursing home run by the Benedictines in St. Cloud. Sister Agnes, now 107, refused to leave Duluth. She moved into a tiny apartment at St. Anne's residence with her rag doll, her wintergreen snuff, and the little red and white fishing lure I'd bought Daddy back in 1963. She polished it every Christmas Eve and said it reminded her of what faith looks like when it's only the size of a mustard seed. Every Christmas Eve after that, no matter how frail she got, she made the nursing sisters wheel her to the chapel at midnight. She'd light one candle, just one, and sing Silent Night in her cracked little voice until the tears ran down her cheeks. 2020, the pandemic hit. Nursing homes locked down. No visitors. Sister Agnes was 112. I stood outside her window every Sunday with a sign that said, "I love you, Mother Agnes." She'd press her little hand to the glass and mouth the words back. The nurses said she kept my picture and little Margaret the rag doll on her nightstand right up to the end. 2023, she turned 115. The local news did a story. Oldest living nun in America still prays the rosary daily. They showed a clip of her tiny, bent figure in the chapel, rosary beads moving through fingers that looked like bird bones. I cried so hard I had to pull the car over. 2024, her health started failing fast. Kidneys, heart, everything wearing out after 116 years of pure love. The sisters called and said if I wanted to see her one more time, I should come soon. I flew to Duluth in October. The leaves were fire red and gold, just like the stained glass windows that Christmas morning in 1963. I sat by her bed for 3 days. She was so small under the white blanket, breathing soft and slow. Sometimes she'd open her eyes and smile like she knew exactly who I was. Sometimes she'd call me Little Sparrow and squeeze my hand with surprising strength. On the 3rd day she pulled me close and whispered, clear as a bell, Mary-Margie, don't you cry when I'm gone. I get to see your mama soon, and all the sisters, and the infant Jesus himself. I've had my Christmas early. I told her I loved her. She patted my cheek and said, I loved you first. She slipped into a coma that night. I stayed until the end. December 1st, 2025, the first Sunday of Advent, at 4:17 in the morning, Sister Agnes Marie went home to God. 117 years on this earth, and she spent more than 60 of them being my mother. They found her with her rosary wrapped around her fingers, and in her other hand, the little porcelain angel I'd bought for Daddy in 1963. The one I thought was lost forever. She'd kept it safe all these years, just like she kept me. The funeral was held in the old chapel at St. Mary's, the same one where she found us frozen that Christmas morning. The bishop came. Hundreds of people filled the pews, former students, nurses, grandchildren of children she'd helped, even the mayor. But the front 3 rows were reserved for the last surviving sisters from our convent and for Tommy and me and our families. It snowed that day, soft and steady, just like the morning she saved us. We sang Silent Night one last time, all the verses, in English and German and Latin. When we got to sleep in heavenly peace, my granddaughter Maggie, named after Sister Agnes, of course, started sobbing in my arms. She was 6 years old. The same age I was when a tiny nun opened a locked door and changed everything. After the graveside service, the Mother Superior handed me a small wooden box. Inside was a letter in Sister Agnes's spidery handwriting, dated the week before she died. I opened it later, sitting in my car with the engine running so I could stay warm. The letter said, to my little frozen sparrow, Mary-Margie. If you're reading this, I've gone ahead to get the guest room ready. Don't be sad. I had the best life a girl from Trondheim could ever ask for, teaching, praying, and raising the 2 finest children the good Lord ever trusted me with. You and Tommy were my Christmas miracle. Every time I looked at you I saw what grace looks like when it wears red pigtails and freckles. Keep telling the story. Keep the candle burning. And when your own Christmas feels too heavy, remember, doors that look locked from the inside can always be opened by love wearing a black veil and answering to the name of an old Norwegian nun. I'll be waiting at the big kitchen table up there with your mama and all the sisters. There will be cocoa with extra marshmallows and cinnamon rolls that never make you fat. Save me a seat, little sparrow. All my love, now and forever. Mother Agnes Marie. I cried so hard the windshield fogged up. Then I laughed, because that's exactly what she would have wanted. That letter is folded in my Bible now, right at the page with the verse about I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Every time I open it, a little dried wintergreen scent still drifts out, like she's sitting right beside me again. So here we are, Christmas Eve 2025, 62 years after the coldest night of my life. My husband Robert passed in 2019, God rest him. Tommy's got grandkids of his own now. We're the old folks at the family table, telling the same stories over and over while the young ones roll their eyes and secretly record them on their phones. And every December I still put that little porcelain angel on the top of my tree, the one with the chipped wing from when Sister Agnes dropped at the Christmas she turned 100. I still have little Margaret the rag doll on my dresser. And every Christmas Eve at midnight I light one candle, just one, and sing Silent Night in the dark until the tears come. Because some doors, once opened, never really close again. Sister Agnes taught me that family isn't always the people who bring you into the world. Sometimes it's the people who refuse to let you leave it. She taught me that love can be 5'0" tall, half blind, and stubborn as a Norwegian mule, and still move mountains. She taught me that Christmas isn't about what's under the tree. It's about who shows up when the tree is the only light in the dark. So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt left out in the cold, by family, by life, by circumstances you didn't ask for, please hear me. There is always someone coming with a candle and a cloak and a heart big enough to carry you home. Sometimes they wear a black veil. Sometimes they're a neighbor, a teacher, a friend, a stranger on the internet leaving a kind comment. But they're coming. Don't give up before they get there. That's the real Christmas story. Not the one in the fancy books. The one that happened to a 6-year-old girl with frozen toes and a porcelain angel in her pocket on Christmas morning 1963. And now I've told it, start to finish, just like I promised myself I would the day we put her in the ground. If this old lady's story touched your heart the way Sister Agnes Marie touched mine, would you do me one small kindness before you go? Please hit that red subscribe button down below and tap the little bell so you never miss another story. I've got dozens more waiting, about the time Sister Agnes made the bishop eat her burnt cookies and cry, about the day she caught me sneaking out to meet Robert and made me weed the entire convent garden as penance, about the letter she wrote to my children when they were born telling them exactly how to be good human beings, and so many more. Every one of them is true. Every one of them is love wearing a black veil and sensible shoes. And if you're over 60 like me, or 70, or 80, or even 90 and still kicking like Sister Agnes was, leave a heart in the comments, or just type I remember or thank you, sister. I read every single one, and they keep this old heart warm on the long winter nights. If this story made you cry the good kind of tears, share it with someone who needs to remember that locked doors can still open. Share it with your grandkids so they know what real love looks like. Share it in your church group, your senior center, your Facebook memories page. Because stories like this are how we keep the candle burning for the next little frozen sparrow who's still waiting in the dark. Thank you for sitting with me tonight, for keeping me company while I remembered the best mother I never had. May your Christmas be filled with open doors and people who refuse to leave you out in the cold. May you have cocoa with extra marshmallows and cinnamon rolls that never make you fat. And may you always have someone coming with a candle when the night feels too big. Merry Christmas, my dear friends. And God bless Sister Agnes Marie, the tiniest, mightiest Christmas gift I ever received. I want to tell you one more thing before I let you go. Every year since 1964, on the anniversary of that Christmas morning, I drive back to Duluth. I park in front of the old St. Mary's Church. They turned it into a community center now, but the stained glass windows are still there. I walk around to the side door, the one the altar boys used, and I stand in the exact spot where Sister Agnes found us. I close my eyes and I can still smell the incense, still feel the warmth of her cloak, still hear her little boots clicking on the marble. And every single year, without fail, someone walks past, an old person, a young mom with kids, a teenager with earbuds, and they stop. They always stop. They look at this gray-haired lady crying in the snow and they ask if I'm all right. And I always smile through the tears and say, I'm more than all right. I'm the luckiest little girl who ever lived, because 62 years ago today an old nun opened a locked door and carried me home. Then I hand them a little card I had printed years ago. On the front is a picture of Sister Agnes at 90, holding little Margaret the rag doll. On the back it says, if you ever feel lost in the cold, remember, love is coming. It might be wearing a black veil and sensible shoes. Don't give up before it gets there. Mary-Margie and Sister Agnes Marie, Christmas 1963 inch. I've handed out more than 2,000 of those cards. People take them, read them, and start crying right there on the sidewalk. Some hug me. Some ask to take a picture. One year a whole busload of Canadian tourists got off just to listen to the story. That's the real miracle. Not that one nun saved 2 kids. The miracle is that the love keeps multiplying year after year, person after person, like the loaves and fishes, only made of butterscotch candies and wintergreen snuff and open doors. So tonight, wherever you are, whatever your Christmas looks like this year, whether it's big and loud or quiet and lonely, please remember this. You are somebody's Christmas miracle waiting to happen. You might be the one holding the candle for a little frozen sparrow who doesn't even know your name yet. Don't put the candle down. Keep walking. Keep looking. Keep opening doors that look locked from the inside. Because that's what Sister Agnes Marie did. And because of her, I'm still here, warm and loved and telling you this story 62 years later. That's the kind of return on investment the good Lord loves best. So that's the whole story, my friends. Every bit of it. From the coldest night to the warmest heart I ever knew. If you take nothing else away, take this. Love never leaves us out in the snow forever. Sometimes it just wears a black veil and answers to the name Sister Agnes Marie.